Welcome to the CWC Podcast with your host, David Selby, Justin Reed, and Andy Horton.
Hello and welcome to the CWC Podcast. I'm your host, David Selby, and these are my co-hosts, Justin Reed and Andy Horton. How are you guys doing tonight?
Doing well. How are you?
Fantastic.
Man, I'm feeling pretty good. I don't know what the weather's like down in Arkansas and Oklahoma, but we've had like a lot of rain the last several days, and it just kind of cooled everything off after it was like 95 or 96 like several days ago, which is completely ridiculous for this time of the year for us.
Yeah, I'd say it's about the same here. I mean, it's cooled down pretty well, and then we're supposed to get some more rain this week, so I'm sure it'll cool down even more. And I love the fall.
Yeah, I'm so ready for it.
It's actually kind of rainy out here right now, and it has not been that way. Our ponds are all dry. We need it really, really bad. So,
yeah. Well, and I know that you don't have to go very far for the weather to be a lot different, because I had to go shoot a photo session an hour and a half, like to the south and the east of me the other day. And I was like, man, I can't believe it's going to be 95 for your photos today. How about all that rain? And he's like, no, we don't have all the humidity that you have. Like, we didn't get any of the rain. It's just crazy that you can just move over a little bit and it's that much different. But I mean, I feel like in Nevada, Missouri, we've just had constant rain for the last several days, and it rained all day today. And just now the sun came out and it's like 65 degrees. It's beautiful. Love it. Feels a little like fall. Andy, it's good to see your face, man. We haven't seen you for a little bit. What have you been doing?
Well, I mean, I actually started 2 weeks before Clinton doing events and have been doing them constant and still haven't stopped. So, we had a reining show that I helped Tracy with in Topeka. And as soon as I got back, actually, while I was there, another friend of mine called me and was in a bind, needed some help, David Thomas. And I jumped on an airplane for him and flew to Washington. And we did a circuit finals barrel race up there, about 500 runs a day for about 3 days. And I got home Monday about 10 o'clock in the morning. I flew the red eye out of Washington. And so I still have not recovered. If I probably feel even worse than I look. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, in that shirt, you look incredible, if you ask me.
And he sounds like such a badass. He's like, I flew the red eye out of Washington.
I traveled around the world. I'm so tired.
Yeah, I was going to say, that just means I did not sleep. I was up from about 5:45 Sunday, and I was up until about, 10 o'clock Monday night. So
just hitting all those airport bars, layovers.
Yeah, no.
Must be terrible.
That is not how that happened. I can tell you.
I hate it when the guy in the line tells me I got to show him all my camera equipment. Then everybody there sees it, and it's so embarrassing.
Yeah, no one asked that question either. So I didn't even get to do that.
They just let you through.
It was like,
did they serve alcohol on the flights?
They did on mine.
All right. He didn't even have to wait till he got to the airport. He was hitting it hard on the plane.
Yeah.
Justin's like, what can I do for you? Can I work for free for you? Let me know. So Justin, you went to a race last weekend, which crept up on us, branded by Christ, Dardanelle, Arkansas. Tell us about the race. How was it?
It was a really cool race. It was very laid back. They don't have all the rules and, not necessarily a time limit. And there was not that many teams. So I think they ended up having 31 teams after a few scratches and things like that. So it went by really fast. They had a lot of outriders that rode for multiple teams. So they had to kind of have to stop the race and wait on them and stuff like that. But other than that, it was really cool. What I've noticed about that race is that there's a lot of people that have never done something like they've never cooked, they've never outrode, that they were able to that weekend because it was such a laid back experience. And, they didn't have all the stress of being an association race, being a points race, being the national championship. And so that was really cool. And they had some other things going on. They had their silent auction, then their not so silent auction. They had some barrel rides, some poles, things like that. And it was a really cool experience. Very laid back, very much a family environment. There was a lot of kids out there, a lot of kids that raced. So it was really cool in that aspect.
Yeah, and word on the street is you got into a wagon.
I did. Yeah. So it wasn't so I know last time we talked, Houston was going to let me ride in the buckboard, which I was totally down for. Unfortunately, Houston had to work, so he had to scratch his teams. But Jana was nice enough to let me ride in the full throttle wagon on the 52-inch ponies rubber tire. So that was a really cool experience. And we also got some footage from that. I wore the GoPro on a harness on my chest.
Oh man.
And
we got to get that.
Jana actually texted me yesterday and she goes, "We just watched the footage. And when you are standing there with the bedroll in hand, we can hear nothing but your heartbeat."
Whoa.
So I was like, man, that's pretty cool. I can't wait to watch it.
I mean, it's funny because I know you're probably scared like a little girl, but I think it's awesome. Cool. Like, that's pretty cool that you could hear your heartbeat. Like, now we got to like add heartbeat to some footage,
Yeah.
like, just to like amp it up. Cause that's what,
Heck yeah.
you would add that in post-production. Like, that's awesome. I just saw a picture that Janice sent me. Actually, it clicked for me because she sent me a message a little bit ago of her from that race, and I didn't realize that the woman sitting next to her screaming with her hair blowing in the wind was in fact you, Justin. That was you in that photo.
Yeah.
Incredible. Just a blur. Just a thrill.
Exactly.
So was she like, you were going full speed, like you were doing the whole thing?
So what's crazy is we did not have an outrider either day catch, so we did not win anything. But our first day, so Saturday, we ran a 55. And then Sunday, we ran a 53.5.
And that's big horse rubber tire. So that's the
No.
long track.
No, 52-inch rubber tire.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
Short
it
track.
was a shorter track, but we were the fastest time by 9 seconds.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
And
Yep.
And then so sitting down in the low wagon, what's that experience like trying to like see?
Well, you don't get to see much. But what I will say is those ponies, when he shot the gun and we were at the starting line and I got in the wagon, he shot the gun and I was coming up. And so Matt
Smith.
Yeah. He said, what you need to do is just put one hand on the rail on her side and like lean over to make sure the wagon doesn't flip. And I said, okay. So I put one hand over and we went to go around the barrel and I literally feel it go up on two wheels. And I'm like, nope, two hands. And so I reach around the front of her and I grab the bar and I'm like leaning as far as I can. And but no, we were going really fast, what it seemed like. And every time we would go on a turn, I was like leaning over as far as I could because I'm like, mother, this thing's
It's
gonna
a
flip.
small wagon.
Yeah,
It's a small wagon.
But
And you're
it
like
was a great
6.
experience.
You got to be like 6'3", 6'4", right? You're
I'm
pretty tall.
6'3". Yeah.
Yeah. So the bigger the guy is in those little wagons, the more top heavy it gets pretty quickly. So you got to think that was probably a thrill, man. That's cool. I'm a little jealous, but I'm also like
But here's the deal. You said don't take a camera. It's never worked for anyone. There's always been a wreck. Well, guess what? We had the GoPro. We had a camera. It didn't wreck. So now you have no excuse. You've got to ride in a wagon. Now,
Oh my
come
gosh.
All right. Well, so on today's episode, we'll actually have 2 separate guests. We get to kick things off with West Kentucky's very own Cassity Tabers. she's Darren McChristian's daughter, and I always want to pronounce McChristian like McQuistion because of the way it's spelled. So we got to ask her about that. So a big part of the staff over there at the West Kentucky Races, she helps put that on in the first weekend of October. So we're gonna have her on first. And then second up, we're going to have special guest Amanda Howard, another board member from the Arkansas Chuckwagon Racing Association. She oversees the Buckboard division, and she's going to tell us where things stand as they head into the last race of the season, the last sanctioned race of the season. And my favorite part of those interviews is just kind of getting to know people that are involved with chuckwagon racing a little bit better, especially people that are making the sport a better, just a better thing for everybody all the time. People involved with with the board, with the ACWRA. I'm kind of excited to pick her brain a little bit. If you have not already, please subscribe and relive the ride at chuckwagonchannel.com. It's $11 a month, or you can save 25% on your year by just paying the $99 for the year. You can cancel at any time. We take the heart of these chuckwagon races and these events, and we put them directly into video form so that you, our dedicated race family, can enjoy them. Your support is what will allow us to keep doing what we love to do, and hopefully grow this channel to be a coast-to-coast name, and so that everybody knows what chuckwagon racing is. We need you to support the Chuckwagon channel. We need you to support the races. So sign up today, become part of the racing community. Also, if you want to sponsor the show or the Chuckwagon channel, please reach out and we'll send our sponsorship package your way. It's our goal to work with businesses who share our values and build the sport and the community of chuckwagon racing. This episode is coming to you on Thursday, September 26th of 2024. However, we're recording on Tuesday, the 24th. We try to do this so that we can edit out most of Justin's potty mouth profanity, of course. And right now, we have the Friday and Saturday races, just now posting the Saturday races from the National Championships on the Chuckwagon channel. I do get to kind of see what's happening on the channel for like how videos perform and stuff. And, anytime we get to put national championship stuff on there, it usually does pretty well. And when I posted the Friday races, it looks like a lot of people came and took those in. So glad to announce that we've got another day on there for you guys that comes straight from the production board that Andy and Justin were making happen right there at the national championships at the pavilion. So you can not only relive the day, but you can not only relive the ride, but you can relive that day just kind of like it happened. And I actually really enjoy kind of going back through that footage from the switcher that they were operating, because it's more immersive for sure than what we do put out that's more polished later and is cutting all of the in-between stuff out. It's definitely reliving it, and especially because you just hear everything, like the immediate reaction, the lull between the races, kind of getting sort of that commentary that we usually cut out. So kind of cool. We also have the Rats Wagon races from Camden up that we've been putting up. I think we still need to put it up the second day. So for anybody that's confused on the order that we're releasing all the races in, don't worry about it. We're sorry, and they'll all get up there eventually. All right, news and notes. So coming up, we still have one more association race, like we mentioned, the West Kentucky Chuckwagon Races, and they're held in Murray, Kentucky on October 5th and 6th. That is right around the corner. We're, releasing on a Thursday, fast forward a week, and we're basically there. And the Halloween Havoc race will be at Loretta Lynn's in Hurricane Mills, Tennessee at the end of October. Not a sanctioned race, but an outlaw race and a fun one. With the West Kentucky race coming up next weekend, we wanted to bring one of their people in to talk a little bit more about the event. So Darren McChristian and his sister, Deanne Anderson, started the West Kentucky Chuckwagon Races 10 years ago, and their entire crew puts on an incredible fall event in Murray, Kentucky every year. They raise tens of thousands of dollars annually for the St. Jude's Children's Hospital with their auction that they do. And today we are lucky enough to have one of their very own, Darren's daughter, Cassity Tabers, here on the show. She's a big part of what they do at the West Kentucky Races, and we're excited to hear more from the source. So welcome to the show, Cassity. How are you doing tonight?
Hi, everyone. I'm great. We're a week away from race time, so been pretty busy out here.
Yeah, what's the day-to-day like around there right now?
Just trying to get everything ready to go. I feel like it gets a little bit easier each year, as we get more used to it. So just lots of people in and out and helping out. So
I did have a question before we get too deep into this. There's been some concern about the pronunciation of McChristian. Am I saying McChristian? So pronounced,
It's
but it's spelled like,
sorry, cut it. McCuiston.
yes. And so I always want to say McQuiston, McQuiston. Like
It happens.
and I'm like, and if you say McQuiston, you feel like you're saying a word wrong. Like, so to just say McChristian, so I'm sure nobody's ever pronounced your name incorrectly. But I just want you to know you're not alone, because my last name is Selby, and it's spelled exactly like it sounds, and nobody ever pronounces it right. Every single time it's Shelby, and I don't know why, but I totally see why you got married at a young age and you took care of that problem quickly. Well, let's take a crack at it here. I'm gonna let you take the floor here. So tell us how long the West Kentucky Chuckwagon Races have been going on. Why did they start, and how has that kind of changed over the last however many years?
Sure. So this is our 10th annual hosting the West Kentucky Chuckwagon Races at the ranch. Overall, I don't think it's changed much. I can say that it has grown. You know, we learned little mistakes from the past, and we just work on those each year to continue to just learn from our mistakes, right? But overall, we haven't changed totally with how we go about doing things. It really started when my parents started going to Clinton many moons ago. I wasn't able to go because I think my mom wanted to have a good time and didn't want to babysit. But every year they came back, they really wanted to expand the sport to Western Kentucky. So we're really just living out that dream and passion.
Yeah, well, we can get behind that for sure. We want to help that happen. And it's been pretty fun getting to go to these races that are pushing the boundary a little bit of the distance that people are willing to travel, and at the same time there are teams over there too. And so I know for people in Bryant, Indiana, like Gerald Burkhalter, it's nice for him to not have to travel quite as far, at least. But yeah, you guys are out there. I mean, it's a pretty good drive out there, and it's cool to not only get a change of scenery, but also to get out there in the fall whenever it's cooled off a little bit. I'm curious to know, so what would you say are the main things that set the West Kentucky Chuckwagon race apart from other races?
I would say the one thing that really stands out about ours is it's at our house, right? Like just growing up here and having it in the literally our backyard from where I grew up and used to play and ride my horses and train. That's where all the action takes place. And so that just means a lot to us that the first week of October, this is home for a lot of other people too.
Was it always part of the races to have the St. Jude's Children's Hospital auction, or how did that come about?
So my aunt started that back in 2010. It was really based off of my Papa K's and the influence that he always had on families. That's really when that initiated with our family. And it started off as a ride. So a lot of people would come to Wrangler's Campground in LBL, and then to follow, we'd have a silent auction where people would donate items, kind of like we do here now at the races. But with us starting up the races 10 years ago, we just kind of moved that into this.
That's awesome. And last year was my first year coming out there to your race, and I thought it was really cool how you actually had a couple of younger people's testimonies. They came out and actually spoke about how that money may have directly affected their own ability to get better. That I think people that had cancer, if I'm remembering right. Does that sound right?
Yeah. Last year, my aunt is an English teacher at the high school here at Callaway, so our local county school, and she personally knew a student that was influenced by our generous donations through the St. Jude auction here.
Yes, and I think generous is right. And I know last year you guys broke your own record, which you'll have to tell me if you can remember what the record was last year, but what it ended up being last year.
Yeah, overall last year for our 9th annual, we raised about $57,600. But what's even bigger is since 2010, we've raised about $264,000, just very shy of that. So this year we're looking to raise, I would say, $60,000. But each year we're honestly blown away about just how much people bring to the table when it comes to helping those children in need.
Yeah. Oh man, it's so great. It gives me chills. I think it's just such a special thing that you guys do, and the fact that you do it every year at the same time just gives it the ability to grow and flourish and really just get better every year. I just think it's awesome. So
I've talked to individuals throughout the years, and some of them come specifically just for the auction. You'll be working the front gate, and they're like, "Oh, I'm just here for the St. Jude auction." Won't even stay for the ranch rodeo. But sometimes when they're here, they see the atmosphere, they want to go ahead and tag into that and the live band. But I mean, that draws in a pretty big crowd every year too.
yeah, and for people that have never been to an auction like this, I mean, if you have a heart for children at all, I mean, if you don't dislike children, you like there is something to enjoy about this auction, because when you see people open up not just their pocketbooks, but like they open their hearts, and when you see people giving like that in that kind of place and the way that they do it, it's not just like you're impressed by numbers. It's the way you see people's hearts literally open up and give. It's really a magical thing, and I think like you can go to that thing and just be a spectator and be moved while you're there, and there's no pressure or anything like that. I mean, it's such a nice atmosphere to be a part of that when it's going on. And that's, I think if I remember, it was like Saturday night at like 6 o'clock, right? Something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's right.
Cool.
And we have people from every generation to contribute to it, whether that be them donating items or hand making items. I know the Callaway County Schools, which is where my aunt does teach, a lot of the students spend all year crafting and constructing different things to put together for the auction. I know in the past we'll have like picnic tables, or last year we had a wagon donated. They work all year to put things together, and from what I understand, they've been working already to just take in donations for this year, so we're expecting to have a pretty big year for it.
I got to commend you guys on the job you're doing there. I just think it's a beautiful thing, and I'm excited to get back there, and I hope I can root on the guy next to me that's throwing down some bids and maybe try to get that bid up a little bit higher and just give some more money.
It becomes pretty competitive. It's always pretty cool to see people spend, money on an item and then turn around and donate it right back. So they won't even take that item home. They just donate it and turn around and donate it right back. And we're able to auction that off and make a little bit more money. I don't remember what it was one year, but we raised like $13,000 for one item because people just kept turning around and donating it right back.
Oh man, yeah, it can really spiral, and that's what I'm talking about. Like if you're just there as a spectator, it is something to see. One of these days we'll have to sucker Andy into coming down there and like putting up like a big screen on the outside of the building, and he'll like he'll tech it out, and people can be like within like half a mile and be witnessing what's going on in there, because
at the ring,
that's what
getting everything.
yeah, people calling in like live stream the auction. He could do the whole thing, I guarantee it.
There you go.
Right, Andy?
That's right.
Yeah, he'd do it for the kids. Oh, he could totally do it. So I wanted to touch on a little bit about you guys' event, and just kind of talk a little bit about what you guys' track is like there. How is it maybe a little different from other tracks?
That's a good question. Probably a good question for a racer, because my parents just don't let me get in a wagon, but they will let me behind, reins of a horse. But I've never been in a wagon. So as far as like that perspective, I don't really know.
Hey, that's okay.
I'll be honest with you. I don't know how to really answer that question. Maybe it's fine. I've heard it's a lot of fun just from the people who do have the pleasure of racing it. Might be a little different because we do have a pretty big whoop down and a turn and around. It's just, it's fun for the riders and the wagons to race it. So
yeah, it's kind of like a 6 shape, and as far as like if you would make it like a number, it looks like kind of like a 6, and it, at least from viewing it, I really like how it does kind of like this roller coaster stuff over on like the backside, and it's hard to shoot it from like a camera that's kind of up in the air a little bit because they kind of disappear behind some of that stuff, and man, it's
yeah, I don't.
It's pretty cool.
There's a bad spot to sit on the track, and to your point, you can't see it from every angle, right? If you're sitting up at the starting line, you can't see the back side of the track, and the back side of the track, sometimes you want to sit over there because that's the last turn before, the finale. So you don't want to miss that part either, but there's not a bad spot in the house.
Oh, keep listening, Andy. You can bring your big screen over there too, and you can make sure everybody can see that from everywhere. No, it's a cool track, and I enjoyed being there last year, because I think the second day, I remember I actually wore a jacket and was just super comfortable. It was just really nice and pleasant to be out there. So I
Better. I would think through the past 10 years, we've had all kinds of seasons here, but that's Kentucky for you. I think one year we had a lot of rain. We've had snow. We've had perfect fall weather. We've been burning up. We've had it all. But the extended forecast, fingers crossed, looks pretty good. We've been getting a lot of rain here recently from the hurricane, so maybe that's going to calm the dust before the spectators and racers start showing up next week.
Well, that'll be just fine. Well, Justin and I will both be there, and we'll have to see what's going on. Maybe we'll try to throw something together for the podcast while we're there too. It'd be kind of cool.
We're having you again.
That'd be fun. Well, so I wanted to ask you, so how do you see the race growing and changing? And you said your parents won't let you get in a wagon, so I'm going to assume they really don't want to keep doing all the work on their own. They're trying to keep that insurance policy for themselves. So how do you see it changing in the next 5 to 10 years?
Sure. Overall, the event as a whole, racing, I really don't want it to change. I feel like it hasn't changed. We represent what Western really is out there on the track, so I hope that does not change. We're a fun sport. We're different than most, and that's really what draws in the attention. People just can't buy tickets and go to a basketball court to see something like this. So I really hope nothing like that changes. And to your point, I feel like over time, what's going to change most is generations, right? So your hosts are going to look a little bit different. Maybe the way things are ran might be a little bit different, but the man himself says, don't take something that ain't broke and try to fix it, right? So just keep doing what you're doing and learn from your mistakes and move on.
Well, I'm excited to get back there and go one more time this year. Before we let you go here, I just wanted to give you roll out the red carpet, give you the floor. Is there anything that you want to say directly to the Chuckwagon racing community ahead of the West Kentucky Chuckwagon Races next weekend?
I would say that we can't wait to have you. It's here next week. We look forward to seeing everyone and having a good time. I want to take a special thank you to our sponsors. Couldn't do it without them. They provide a lot for us to do this, between the racers and our spectators, what we can do for them. The people in the blue shirts, they know the game, so if you run into any issues, don't hesitate to reach out. It really takes a village around here. It's not just all the faces you see. There's a lot of people, on the back end of things doing a whole lot of work too. But if it wasn't for you all, we wouldn't be able to do this. So we just look forward to seeing everyone in safe travels, and we look forward to having a good time with you.
That's awesome. Well, we're expecting good weather, so let's keep our fingers crossed for that. But Cassity, thank you so much for coming on the show. We appreciate you taking the time. Tell everybody out there we say hey, and we'll see you next weekend, okay?
Thanks for having me. See y'all next week.
Thanks,
all
Cassity.
Right. Yeah, all right. So we're going to bring in our next guest, Amanda Howard. So we're going to have her coming in right now. Sit tight. Hey, all right. There we go. We've got Amanda Howard. Hey, how's it going, Amanda?
Doing good. How are y'all?
Doing great. Hey, thanks for getting all dressed up. You look fantastic. I see you got a belt buckle on there. What's that thing say?
That is it's actually Lane's Buckboard buckle. It's Loretta Lynn's from 2023.
Okay.
I stole it from my kid.
Well, I tell you what, we're going to give you a quick intro here, and then we'll get right into it. So, welcome to our special guest, who is an Arkansas Chuckwagon Racing Association board member over the Buckboard division. She's also an association timer, and she's been attending races for almost 20 years. And she's been actively involved in the ACWRA since 2015. We are excited to have her on the show, Amanda Howard. Thanks for taking a break from dealing with Brad House and all the association people to just come on the show for a little bit tonight.
Yeah, no problem.
So, how's everything looking going into next week at the final sanctioned event of the year?
So that's going to be the last race. There's 2 top teams that are kind of right there together. You got Full Throttle, you got Full House. Right now, Full Throttle Loca's in the lead. Brad's not too far behind her, so it's going to be interesting. And then you got Houston back there that you can't count him out. And I don't know. There's a couple of teams coming in from Indiana that are pretty good. So you don't ever know what's going to happen.
Okay, so, all right, so you're kind of talking about how the buckboard division's looking going into this last sanctioned race of the year. I know we had Jana Priscilla on the show a couple weeks back, and she kind of mentioned that the season has kind of been this back and forth between her and Full House, Brad House,
Yep.
and so basically she's going to have to show up and get a qualified time and throw a few points on the board is kind of what she needs to do. Is that correct?
Yeah. So they're going to have their cooks in there, their outriders on their A game, make sure boxes and bedrolls are in there. And Kentucky's a driver's track. I mean, it's not just a flat track. You've got curves, you've got hills. I mean, it's a tough track.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And we just had Cassity Tabers, who's Darren McChristian's daughter. She was on the show just before you came on, and she was kind of talking about the track a little bit, and we were kind of going over that same stuff. It's a fun one to watch, I'll tell you. I enjoyed kind of getting to take it in for the first time last year. So I kind of want to talk a little bit about your role as a timer. But before we hit on that, I want to kind of go all the way back to when you first started with Chuckwagon Racing. How did you get started with racing originally, and what's kind of been the story of your career up until this point?
So we first started coming to Clinton. It was about 2006 is my first time ever going. And there's a team that's from Mississippi. It's TNT. They started out Big Mules, which now they're in 4-Up. But we started going with them and camping with them. And Clinton's addictive. Once you go once, you always go back. So we haven't missed one since then. And it was just always a dream of mine to get out on that track and do the same thing. And that's what I did. So, we went for, I guess, all the way to like 2014, just as spectators. And finally, I talked my husband into it. I'm like, look, I want to race. So in 2015, we actually bought us a 46-inch mule team. We were TNT Reloaded at that time. He was a driver out road. And that lasted till a friend of mine told me that you aren't living until you drive your own team. So that lasted till probably, 2017. I think I got brave enough. I got my own 46-inch team, and we started out with Hell's Bells, running 46-inch ponies, got a Land Rush wagon, and so we tried to rookie into Clinton, and we actually did get rookied into our first year. My outrider actually got us in on her time, and we've just been going ever since then. So we got involved with ACWRA that same year that we got the mules, and I mean, we've just grown. Everybody that's a part of that association has just become this, like, that's our family. We live in Mississippi. They live Kentucky, Arkansas, Missouri, Alabama. I mean, they're our family. So we see more of them than we do some of our real family. So they've definitely been a blessing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something I've had the privilege of getting to experience a little bit over the last year since having the Chuckwagon channel, getting to go to these different races and see all those same faces. And it really is, it is something special to be a part of the racing community. And, that's definitely part of my goal with what we do with the channel is to try to bring even more community and build that community up because it's such a cool thing to be a part of. If you're not a member of the ACWRA, I guess I'll just let you talk about it, Amanda. What does it take to become a member of part of the ACWRA?
So becoming a member, you can come to any of the races and join. We have applications there. The beginning of the year is January. It's actually our awards banquet, but it's also kind of like the beginning of the next race season. So we're going to line out all of our tracks. We're going to have a big dinner, all that. So you can come in before the banquet and sit in for the meeting. They'll go over like rule changes, anything like that. Discuss our tracks that are going to be coming up. There'll be more tracks probably than that we can fit in, but they'll discuss all that. We'll vote which tracks in, and then we just hang around and enjoy each other's company, and that's kind of that. If you come to a race, you always are welcome to come up and talk to Miss Nancy or to Brad, and they can get you set up with the application. And once you start coming to races and you join, like I said, it's a big family, and it's just a part of you after that.
As David describes it, the traveling circus.
Oh, I did not.
Yeah.
I might have said
You did. You did.
Okay.
I can agree with that.
It is very much. It is kind of a. And I've said that to Brad House before too. I've said, man, it's really incredible because you have all these different acts that are a part of one of these association races, like from an entertainment standpoint, and they pack it up, and it's almost. Obviously there are weeks and months between events at times, but they caravan. It almost feels like they're all just caravanning to the next place.
Yep.
And the production goes up, and it's awesome. It's such a cool thing. So, whether you get involved with the association or you just go to the event that's closest to you, we try to keep the schedule updated for the races that we're going to on the Chuckwagon channel on the website. But as we get the site updated for the ACWRA, I'm excited to have that as a tool for people to also kind of stay updated with everything that's coming out. So a lot of big things going on with the ACWRA, and it's growing. And do you have any idea what the memberships are at for 2024 right now?
I do not. I know we had, I don't even remember how many we had total new members last year. But it's more than that this year. So we're definitely growing every year. So when I first started in ACWRA, pretty much everybody was from Arkansas or Missouri. And now you've got races from, Mississippi, you've got, Kentucky's coming up, Alabama. It's not just Arkansas anymore. And, the more expansion that we get, the more exposure that we're getting. So you've got, new teams that have come from all those different states now. So it's just growing and growing. So, every time we get a new race or we go somewhere different, that's more people that, hey, that's pretty cool. Let's go to more. Or, hey, I can drive a wagon. I can do that. So they're joining in. So it's just getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. We need to have Brad House start going around to the campsites with like a sack with like some candy in it and some invitations, just to start get more race teams, because it's pretty neat. It's pretty neat how the sport is growing, and I think that all the events that are an extended amount of drive time away, all those events are great events. And I got to go to all the furthest ones away over the past year. And I would recommend like any of those events. I think they're all fantastic. So it's cool to see the sport growing and expanding. And it's really a beautiful thing. And I'm excited to see how the association, going back to last year, having a record year, at least in the most recent several years, hitting several hundred, and see how going into 2025, how it looks. Justin, did you have a question you want to throw in there?
Yeah. So what I was going to throw in was basically, does any other members of your family, I know you touched on how you and your husband started racing, does any other members in your family race? And tell us a little bit about your husband and your son and what they contribute to the ACWRA.
So my husband, he, like I said, we started out with the 46-inch mules, but once I moved up to the ponies, he kind of stepped back, and he actually was the starter for the ACWRA for several years. And then my son, he's just grown up in it, so he started out riding. He got a little bit better, and then like I said, all of us are pretty much family. So he's outrode for just about all of my friends. So and of course now he gets to rub in my face. He's a 3-time national champion at Clinton in the Fort Mules, so he's surpassed his mom. So
Yeah, gotta love that.
Well, and talking with Houston last week, Houston Blankenship, it was also it's always cool to hear the stories of people's families being involved, because it's such a family sport. I mean, we throw family around like, hey, it's the race family. I mean, there's literally like people's entire families are racing together, traveling together. It's such a family event from top to bottom when you go to any of these truck wagon race events, and that's one of the things I absolutely love about the sport.
Yeah, it's like as the term that I call it, they're generational racers. It just runs in the generations.
it
And
does.
that's an incredible thing. You don't see that in too many sports.
Well, and we can sit there and
Absolutely.
jack with each other and talk crap, but I mean, when it comes down to it, if you need something, all you gotta do is walk into somebody's camp and they're gonna help you. I mean, and then all these kids that are growing up doing it now that I've watched grow, and now they're racing and everything. They're like my own kids, so there's not a single race out there that I'm not like on the edge of my feet, screaming for somebody, or being worried mother hen, anything like that. So when I say family, I mean family. So I mean, everybody's my brother, my sister, their kids are my kids. So, I mean, you can go to a race and forget you even have kids, because everybody else is going to watch out for them too. So,
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. The well goes so deep on so many levels, really, in the truck wagon racing realm. And you talk about the family aspect, you talk about the teams, getting to know the players, you talk about how many different divisions, how many different race criteria that need to be met in different divisions. I just think that for anybody that enjoys sports, enjoys equine, enjoys a festival or a family atmosphere, there's just something for everybody at all these events. I think it's so cool. For rodeo people, there's almost always rodeo or something to that effect. It's pretty awesome. So tell me more about the role of the timer at the races. For people that don't know, what are you guys typically doing during any given ACWR race?
So Nancy Pillis, our head timer. I'm the second timer. So she will always time the first team across the line, and I have the second team. So we're waiting for the starter to, I try to listen best I can for Cook's Load Your Wagon, so I can be, ready and waiting on that, button push. So a lot of times you can see the smoke from the gun before you can actually hear the actual sound, but you go off sound. And then, it's not just waiting until they get to the finish line. We're watching outriders. We're making sure teams don't cut barrels, anything like that. So, we got to make sure that the outriders ahead of the team. It can be close. I mean, they could be that far apart, but if the nose of that outriding horse is not in front of the nose of that team, they don't get a time. So sometimes we're not liked very well, but that's the name of the game. So, we try our best to be, fair and honest with everybody. There's sometimes that teams are right there on top of each other, and me and Nancy are standing on top of each other trying to get the exact times and, all that. It's tedious. It really is tedious. And, we do the best, that we, humanly can, but, it's nerve-wracking for sure.
Yeah, and I know, you guys kind of wear a lot of hats during the race, because you're not just, like you said, you're not just like hitting a button and then you just call it as they cross the line. You're kind of having to be judges down there too and watch out for a lot of stuff. And, unlike Clinton, a timer gets to stand on a bluff and see the finish line. You guys are down on the track, and that can be a challenge within itself. But also, unlike, at Clinton or some races, the finish line changes at a lot of these association races, because the length, depending on the division, that changes. So what's that like for you guys? Maybe kind of for somebody that doesn't know what you guys have to do. How are you guys getting around down there?
So we actually have a side-by-side that we can go back and forth in, and we also use it as our buffer because there are teams that like to, when they get to the finish line, they want to cut in. So there's sometimes I have to grab Nancy or she has to grab me and move us out of the way, but we've got a short track and a long track, and we go back and forth between, we start out with the big horse rubber tire, so that's the longer track. It's also the classic and big mule track. And then we kind of have to go back to the shorter track, which is like for our 46s or like our 52s. So that side by side saves a lot of walking time. So, and then our youth track is it's kind of different per track. So we try to make it as safe as we can for the youth, division, depending on what track we're at. So that sometimes can vary a little bit.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, you guys do a good job down there, and it's that was something that was enlightening to me coming into the association races for the first time last year, and kind of seeing how you guys operate. I think it's fascinating. I think it's a serious job, and it's not to be taken too lightly. Not to mention, like you said, you guys are kind of in harm's way there at the finish line sometimes, so you have to have your head on a swivel. And I wanted to kind of bring this up, talking with Jana Priscilla a couple weeks back. We got onto the topic of electric timing. Or the electric eye, if you will. And we didn't really have a strong opinion on like a big necessary change, but it was interesting. And I'm curious to get your take on whether or not that's something that you would want to see in the future of the association and chuckwagon racing in general.
So as a racer, if I was just, giving my racer opinion, if we could, erase a little bit of human error or just any kind of hiccups, that would always be more preferred. As a timer, I don't know the specifics on how, I used to barrel race, so I know that kind of electric timer, but I don't know like how you would run two teams on the same track and have all that work. And then moving it from track to track, I don't know how all that would, play into, effect, but it would eliminate, a lot of, just that chance for, just a mistake. So,
well, something that comes to mind for that would be like the RFID chips that they use for motocross racing.
True.
Be a possibility there.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I immediately was thinking about like people on foot, like doing like a cross country race, which, everybody starts and finishes at the same spot typically on those kinds of races.
Right.
But it is so interesting to speculate and kind of think about what could happen to get that kind of technology standardized within the chuckwagon race community, because there's probably quite a bit of work, more than people would assume, to bring something like that in and put it not only at one race, like an outlaw race would be one thing, but to put it at all these different tracks where you have different lengths of track for different divisions, etc. It's interesting, but yeah, I wanted to get your take on that to kind of see if you thought about that a lot.
Yeah, how would you get it like in each wagon?
Yeah, Andy, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, so the same thing that you just said comes to mind too, though. Like, even in motocross, they start and stop in the same spot. So I'm not sure how that would work, because you'd have to have that's more of a challenge than getting it in each wagon, because on motocross, they just have a little chip, a little puck that they just stick on your helmet, and then they have a scanner that reads that. But for motocross, it's one scanner, and it's on, the
only way that you would be able to do it is if you had like the scanner on the side by side and then you moved it over.
Yeah.
I guess the scanner could travel on the side by side. Like the side by side would have to meet like a certain spot on the finish line, and oh yeah,
a lot of technicalities.
Here, boys.
I'm sure it's a lot of money.
It's so interesting to talk about though, because I know that there's always judgment calls that have to be made that are not easy calls in the sport, and it's something actually that I mean, Clinton it's been a topic for the last 2 years for sure. Talking about all the way back to 2022, that we'd featured on the Great Wagon Race docuseries, that we kind of had this whole little thing about, if people jump the line. There were some allegations on the Perry Murdoch thing with the classic, but which is honestly just good entertainment, good storytelling for us. But ultimately, you want everybody to be happy, and you want it to be fair. And I do think that there is a lot of integrity in all the people that are involved with the races. I'll say that to my grave. I think that the integrity is there. I think the people, their heart's in the right place. People don't travel to these races the distance that they go to be, compensated probably not that much money. It's because people love it, that people are there and people are supporting it. And that's why the people are part of the ACWRA. So, hats off to you guys, but I did want to get your take on it. I think it's interesting. And, maybe the solution isn't to have like this whole timer system. It might literally just be a matter of having an eyeball that's electric, such as a camera on the start line and the finish line, or maybe even just the finish line. Maybe that's step one. I know Jana mentioned at the 1836 that they have the outlaw race down at Natchez, Texas. They do actually have an iPad set up because they have a common finish line. I guess you'd say more like at Clinton, they, when they run their outer loop, it's just like you have a long track and then you have a shorter loop for an inner track, but they all finish at the same finish line. Even actually they do like a twisty. How do you describe that with a shape? Just like a curly Q almost. So they go around their loop, and even your land rush starts and finishes at the same starting line. So it's kind of cool how they do it. Not that, I mean,
you wouldn't
once
be
again,
able to do that with every track,
right? It changes at every track, which I think is something to celebrate. So there's certain things that would have to be changed to standardize something like that, but it's a kind of a cool conversation. And I like to talk about it here because maybe some ideas get going out in the Chuckwagon racing community that at some point something that something does get standardized. But I could see, at the most simple form of a change, I could see maybe the finish line, whatever that is. I know you guys have 2 timers. Maybe there's an added person, or maybe there's a maybe there's a camera, or there's some kind of way to do a quick review on the finish line for every race that doesn't require too much more work, or maybe just one more person. I don't know. I mean, that's always easier said than done, but it is interesting. And I know the finish line isn't the only place that people have their qualms. I mean, there's, did I step on the line? Did I jump the starting line? Et cetera, et cetera. It goes on and on.
The technology's out there. It's just applying it.
As the sport grows, we're going to see these things happen. I mean, you call it growing pains, I guess, but usually those are a good thing. And it'll be fun to kind of see how the sport has to change as time goes on. So it's exciting, but yeah, thanks for weighing in on that. I think it's interesting, especially coming from a timer who's down there in the trenches doing the work. So nice to know that you would actually appreciate having some change there. So, so I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about the association's growth in the past couple of years? I know we kind of mentioned it, but what would you attribute so much of that growth to? What is maybe happening that it's growing more than it did in the past?
I do think, expanding to the other states have helped a lot. You're getting a whole new fan base. And then, like I said, these fans they're jumping in and saying, hey, I want to do that. That looks cool. I mean, so they're coming, they're bringing their friends. We're trying to, publicize it a lot more. It's not just like a backyard sport. It's something, big. It's something worthy of people to come out and watch, and, that kind of thing. We've got t-shirts going. You've started the Chuckwagon channel. It's reaching a lot more people. And then, of course, you've got Facebook, you've got, YouTube, you've got TikTok. So everybody's getting videos. I mean, everybody's got a phone. Everybody's got a camera. They're videoing everything. So, you put music to it now and everybody gets to go like it. So, I mean, it's getting out there a lot more than where it was when we started.
Yeah. And I would say, yeah, I agree. I guess maybe the word is accessibility. I think that there's so much more accessibility now than there has ever been. And that can be good and that can be bad, I guess.
Yeah.
It makes you feel like as the association that you have to make sure that you're always kind of, keeping things tightened up and that you do stick to your guns on your rules and all that kind of stuff to make sure people and just people, safety. But yeah, it's really been cool to see the power of social media acting in a good way for the sport. And I guess the other thing I would ask you is, I just got introduced to the association last year for the most part. So being on the board and being a part of those people that are running the sport, how do you feel about the current acting board members? Do you feel like that's affected positive change as well?
I do. I mean, going back to the same thing, having all these new racetracks and these new people, you've got fresh minds, fresh ideas. Everybody, that's a part of the association. They're all proactive. They all want to see the sport grow. They all want to do what they can to make this a better, sport, a better association. You've got all the big rodeos and you've got all like the AQHA shows and stuff like that. And, that's, been promoted for years and years and years. I had never heard about chuckwagon racing until the first year I went to Clinton. So, I'm not from Arkansas, I'm from Mississippi. So we had one race team. So, when I get over there and you walk into that world, it's just a whole different environment. So, just getting it out there and people seeing it, that's all I can say is it just needs to, you just have to experience to be a part of it. And you'll see, how the new faces and the new fresh ideas and stuff have grown the sport since just I've been a part of it. So, they've got traditions and stuff, back when we first started, it was just kind of you go, you race, and that was kind of it. Now it's more, I don't know, I don't really have a word for it, David.
But I'm picking up on what you're saying, and I feel like it's kind of like almost like this generational effect. And there's you've got these people that have been in it for 10 or 20 or 30 years or more, and you're seeing people now, something you never could have seen in this sport before is kids who started 20 or 30 years ago, and now they are grown adults with kids, and they want to see that tradition stay alive and thrive. And so, the sport is so young, it's never had that on its side until now. And I started going to races at Clinton 16 years ago. So that's how long I've been involved. So I've been around long enough now to kind of see some of these kids grow up in the sport. Cool.
Well, just, I've got a friend, her dad, she grew up in it, her dad raced, and just looking at the pictures and stuff from, when she was a kid to now, it just kind of started out as like just a hobby type thing. Now it's like a full-fledged sport. You want to go out and you want to get the best equipment you can. You want to get the best equines you can, the best harness. It's a big deal now.
Well, and kudos to the association for sticking with it. I know there's been ups and downs over the years, and we've been fortunate to hear some of that from all the people that are a part of the association that we've been able to interview, and it's cool to learn more about it. And so, yeah, again, kudos to you guys for doing what you do, and to the leadership that's in the association for continuing to aggressively try to grow the thing and expand the sport, because it takes a lot of work. It takes a village, as they say, to travel with all these people and put on a show and put on a production and work with different track owners at every single track in a different state. 8 association races over 5 states. It's crazy. It's awesome. And I commend you guys in all of your efforts. So before we wrap things up, I do have one more kind of fun question for you. Halloween Havoc race coming up at Loretta Lynn's over there in Tennessee. Are you going to be there?
I will be there.
And what will be your costume?
I can't tell you that. Then it's not a surprise. Janet would probably
Okay,
kill
so
me
no
if
tent,
I let
but
you in on our secret.
Oh
okay,
boy.
well, you might kill Jana because
Did she
Jana
tell
might have
you?
leaked a few things when she was on. I
Right.
did wrap up her show. I wrapped up with a very similar question for Jana, and she leaked a couple things. So we're excited to see what you guys roll out over there. Well, we should have the cameras rolling, so we're
Jana
excited.
Jana
We're
and
excited to see
I
what all
always
goes down.
do it pretty big, so it'll be fun.
Well, you know, it's one you roll the dice a little bit when you go to West Kentucky at the start of October. You know, the weather could be a little warm still, but really it's not as likely. Like the weather had cooled off and it was fall. It was fall when we got to the Halloween Havoc races at Loretta Lynn's last year. And that was just really cool to kind of be at that point in the year where you're between the summer craze and you still got a couple months till Christmas, and everybody's just there having a good time at like the last race of the year. So I'm excited to see you guys down there. I'm excited to see you next weekend over at West Kentucky. I know it's going to be a good time. And
Yeah.
more than anything, we appreciate you coming on the show and taking some time out of your busy night and your busy schedule. And is there anything else you want to say to encourage people ahead of going to West Kentucky next week?
Oh gosh. If you're in it for the points, make sure your outriders are there. Make sure your butts are in their seats. And what does Andrea say? Win, win, win.
Yeah, she'll say that a couple of times likely.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be good to see everybody out there. It's going to be a good race, but awesome. Again, thanks for coming on the show, and we appreciate you, and we'll see you out there on the track.
All right, guys. Thank you. Thank you for all that you do.
All right.
Thank
see
you, Amanda.
That was awesome. Cool to have that interview with Amanda Howard. Always cool to hear people's stories about how their family are involved, and they're just the passion that everybody has, but kind of from their own vantage point, you know, for the sport of chuckwagon racing. And any takes on what we kind of learned about her perspective as a timer?
I thought that was a really cool perspective, being able to, you know, talk to somebody who's actually in the midst of it, like, you know, that's in the grind, because it is a grind when you're down there and you're being judged on every little move you make, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so to be able to, you know, kind of pass that judgment away from yourself and do your job with as much integrity as I know her and Nancy does.
Yeah.
You know, that's an incredible perspective. And I know something that, you know, that we didn't really talk about, which is how she got into being a board member from a racer, is the fact that she was racing and she got injured racing and she wasn't going to be able to race anymore. And so, you know, that's pretty interesting that she stayed in the association. She stayed in the racing game, even though she wasn't a racer, you know, and that's a really cool thing.
Yeah. That's definitely a testament to her love for the sport and her passion for the sport. So it's awesome. I kind of enjoyed hearing, you know, yet from another source, from somebody that's actively like part of the association, part of the board, saying that they could totally go for like an upgrade somewhere in the electric timer realm if you know if the technology was there, if it was affordable, if it was something that could be standardized. Thought that was kind of neat, and then hadn't even thought about anything, you know, like a motocross race. You know, I mean, there's got to be something out there that's comparable.
Yeah. So there is a company that makes a product, and I mean, you know, we knew it wasn't going to be cheap. So they make a more affordable one, but when I looked at it, there are limitations on it that would keep you from using it for chuckwagon. Like, it can only detect in like a 20-foot area, and it can also only handle up to like 15 miles per hour of speed. Well, I think most of your chuckwagon stuff it's gonna break that. So they make a more expensive one that can cover 40 feet, which still 40 feet. You think that's a lot? It's not really a lot when it comes to the chuckwagon thing. So I'm not 100% sure that 40 feet of width is going to
At like a finish line?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but you can get the scanner and the software and all the stuff. I want to say it's like, I think the one I was looking at, let me look again. I want to say it was like $4,300 or something like that. And the tags that you would stick on the wagons are like $7. And they're just like they're like stickers that have an RFID chip in them.
Yeah.
So I don't know if those could be reused. They're typically not, from what I understand. Like from what I've seen, they stick them on helmets and then they peel them off and throw them away.
Well, another thing about this that, you know, we may not have thought about is, you know, how hot it gets at some of these chuckwagon races, and you know how technology works in the heat. And then not only that, but you also have where we still race during the rain.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that would hold up on, you know, being able to time. And so the problem is that if it starts working, or if it works, right, and we have just a slamming hot day, and then in the middle of the race it decides to stop working, then you don't have that time unless you have backup timers.
Well, and like Jana said last week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a couple weeks ago, Jana had mentioned that it would probably have to be something that would be like secondary to the human timing. And
absolutely.
And that makes total sense, and I don't think you'd roll it all out at once either. You'd have to try it out, you know, and and see how it works. And you know, maybe what we're talking about right now is completely the wrong solution. It might literally it might literally come down to, I mean, you think about like a football game or sports or whatever, like that you watch on TV, and it may be more about having some kind of simple video system that you deploy that enables, you know, that wireless look, and it could be a delay of seconds or whatever before you have your, you know, your nose decided. Maybe you do have to look back to decide a nose race, you know, like a race that's determined by the, you know, the length of like a horse's nose. But at least if you had something like that, it might actually fall into something else that works in a lot of other areas too. You know, you think about what we do for video. You know, maybe it's more of an add-on to what we're already currently doing at a lot of these races. And so it's kind of a win-win where we get better coverage because we're adding on a little bit extra technology, or that person that's, you know, overseeing our feed, like Justin did on the switcher at Clinton, but he's also ACWRA staff, and he's able to make a judgment call based on what's on the screen in front of him too, and run something back. You know, there could be, you know, maybe a solution that benefits more than just one thing. So it's kind of interesting. It's kind of been fun to brainstorm on that today, but yeah, 2 good interviews. For those of you guys that you're planning on doing some traveling coming up here next week, it's going to be West Kentucky out there, Murray, Kentucky, for the West Kentucky Chuckwagon Races. Justin and I will be there for sure, and we will be covering the races. We're not sure yet what we might do for a show. Maybe we'll do something that we could record something there. We're not really sure yet. We know we're taking a pretty lean approach because it's far away, and we're just going to kind of get it as we can this year. But and then following up West Kentucky, fast forward 2 or 3 weeks there, and you're in that final weekend just before Halloween, 4 or 5 days before Halloween, if I'm remembering right, that we'll be out there at Loretta Lynn's capturing that race. And then we're going to have a big old break, and it's really just going to be focusing on putting a lot of content out from all the races we've shot this year. It'll be fun to kind of do some changing up the show a little bit, to talk about maybe not so much the current races that are happening, but kind of getting deeper into the sport and peeling back the layers of all the different aspects of the sport. So I'm excited for that too, to kind of feel that out for the first time going into kind of the fall season. So,
well, not to, you know, I know how much you love to put people on the spot, but are we going to continue the podcast?
It's a great question.
Halloween Havoc.
It's a great question. as far as I can tell, we're going to do this thing every single week, whether it's just me, whether it's all three of us, whether it's just Andy.
Andy's
You know?
like,
Whoa.
Yeah.
Andy, your face, man.
Yeah, that'll be like the HBO special that is only coming out on a Saturday night. You know, get your popcorn ready and everything. But that'll be the Andy, the technology behind Chuckwagon show. I think that'd be kind of a cool show. I think you would have several people that would really like that show. Actually, I think you'd have a surprisingly good little fan base that would get down on the technology that's going on behind the scenes. But anyways, we'll get out of here. I know today was a long show. I probably should have said it at the start. We knew it was going to be a long show, but for those of you that made it this far, thanks for sticking around. Thanks for listening to us blab and talk about everything that you may or may not be in love with, but we sure are. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and relive the ride at chuckwagonchannel.com. We post these episodes every Thursday on the Chuckwagon channel for our subscribers, and then we post publicly on Fridays on YouTube and YouTube Music. So, as always, thank you for supporting what we do. We really appreciate it more than you know, and we'll see you out on the track.
Thanks for listening to the CWC podcast.